Bruins Beat is brought to you by PrizePicks.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by PrizePicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by CLNS Media. Make sure you go subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Lots of great stuff there. Interviews, podcasts, I almost said pucks with Poke the Bear, pucks with Haggs, Bruins Beat. Just mixing them all up, Connor.
It tumbles together. We just have so much great content, Evan.
Oh, it just rattles around in my brain, but we have it all over there. Go subscribe on YouTube, turn on notifications. And if you don't love watching us, that's okay. We have a backup. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean. There are a bunch of different platforms. You can do that. And then there's a lot of great other CLNS stuff, Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. They are all firing on all cylinders as we approach September. So go do that. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Just did 2 full entire days at a hockey rink in Foxborough, and you are doing almost or full entire days at a football field in Foxborough. So we're summer's over.
We're in the fall season. Got my Dunkin' Pumpkin. We're ready to roll, Evan. I'm ready for, especially next week where we have captain's practices starting back up. We're actually going to have something tangible to talk about. Thank God. We're almost there, Evan.
Pavel Zacha's C-cuts. Look at those. We can spend 10 minutes on that. Maybe Casey Middlestad's shot. We can get into all that, and I'm sure people will be enthralled to hear us talk about those topics. But couple interesting things on the docket today. Jay Fresh, who I don't know if you guys, if you're on Twitter, you probably know who he is. He puts out player cards, has his own models. It's a lot like his own model that he uses to put on hockey stuff. It's like a female model there that he's like, oh, here she is. Not that, not
it's very
quite
vain
that.
of him to do that. Yeah, it's really unbecoming.
2025. We're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, come on.
Honestly, a more interesting model is the projections for this upcoming season. I really got to get this back to hockey. Projections for this upcoming season that he put out on Wednesday. And interestingly enough, in the Atlantic, he has Tampa Bay at 102 points, Toronto at 100, Florida at 98, Ottawa at 97, Buffalo at 93 and making the playoffs, Bruins 87, Detroit 83, Montreal 83. When I see those, now, by the way, and he did reply to that tweet with hey, I was pretty accurate last year with my projections. So his model works, his model cooks. I agree with his Bruins projection. I think that is where the Bruins are going to be. I think it's sort of outside the playoffs, not going to be bad, but they're sort of in that middle to low tier. Where I disagree is Buffalo. And Montreal is last in the Atlantic. I think those two flip. I don't see Buffalo getting in the playoffs. Again, there's no model doing this unless you consider me a model. Maybe that counts. But I see Montreal going in over Buffalo. But I'm curious what your take is on the Atlantic there.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that that's where Jay Fresh has the Bruins, right? Where, as you said, 88 points? A step in the right direction from where they were last year, right?
He changed it. He made a new one. He added in new things. So then the Bruins went down to 87 points. So 87, 88 points.
So still a step in the right direction from where they were last year, obviously, but still a little bit outside the playoff picture. And I think that's almost kind of the fair stance of where you expect the Bruins to be this year. I change my opinion. It feels like every week in terms of this team's going to have some really tough sledding to, they're going to be competitive, but come up just short to maybe they're going to surprise, make the playoffs. And they're kind of on that bubble, which I think is where Jay Fresh has them. I do agree. I don't think Buffalo, I think that's the great model breaker in terms of yes, maybe they have the talent. They've made some smart moves. They have talent on the blue line, but that team is cursed. You're forgetting the great equalizer. That team is just always ass that. You have to factor that into the equation. I do wonder if for Montreal and some of these other ones, it all comes down to they're a flashy team. They got a lot of young talent, but what's their goaltending going to be? I almost feel that is always the thing that even that's what it is with the Bruins, where they have clear flaws offensively. They've got question marks all across the depth chart. What if Swayman's regains his form, right? Like that in and of itself. If Jeremy Swayman, we've mentioned this before, as dreadful as the Bruins were last year, and they were really bad. If Jeremy Swayman had like a 9-15, 9-12 save percentage, they're already in the playoffs. Like the margins are so slim when it comes to determining where these teams are that if Jeremy Swayman just becomes a league average goalie, let alone regains his form as one of the top goaltenders in the league, I think that holds a lot of weight as well. So not really surprised that's where the Bruins fall in on this list. I'd be surprised if like Jay Fresh looked at this team and thought they were like a juggernaut or a team that's ready to break out or anything like that. I don't think his numbers are all of a sudden being like, well, we got Matej Blumel for 25 goals and Casey Middlestat's got 60 points. Like I'm not surprised that his numbers didn't map out a scenario like that playing out, but I do think that's pretty fair in terms of where he has them on his latest projections.
Completely. And it's funny because last year the Bruins were one of the teams that he and every other projection model was the most wrong on. A lot of the models had the Bruins as, definitely a playoff team. They were obviously nothing close to that. And that's why I think this is accurate. I think they're in the middle, and I think I don't think they're going to be out of it completely, like from the playoff hunt. I think they'll be, within 10 points throughout most of the year. And, there'll be spots where it's like, man, if they just go on a little run here, what they could be. But I see them ultimately being in that area. And you're picking, as I've said all along, you're picking 11th, 12th, 13th in that spot. And I think you take it. I think this model takes into account Swayman bouncing back. I think this model takes into account maybe guys like Elias Lindholm being better than they were last year. I just don't think you have enough. Now, my other thing is like Detroit. Like Detroit also is due to break out. Detroit at some point, similar to Buffalo, at least on paper, is due to make the playoffs at some point. And what I wonder with like the Atlantic is like, are Tampa, Toronto, and Florida guarantees to be up there again? Like Matthew Tkachuk is obviously dealing with injuries. What are they going to look like? Toronto after last year losing Mitch Marner, what are they looking like? And Tampa's getting older. So like, what are they looking like? And so, does Ottawa go even higher? Does Detroit jump in there? Does one of those top three teams I just mentioned with Tampa, Toronto, and Florida, do they bow out? I think no, even if Tampa, Toronto, and Florida, one of them falls out, it doesn't change my opinion on the Bruins. I still put the Bruins in that area of like, they're not making the playoffs. I think that's better for your Buffaloes, your Ottawas, your Detroits, and your Montreals more than it is for you. It's still good news for you, but I still think it's a bigger development for those younger teams.
Yeah, I think when you just look at high-end talent, and the Bruins could be a hard out this year, right, when it comes to the goaltending, the defense, all those sorts of things. But I think you just look at the roster and what's the better winning formula? Maybe you can make the case that it is building it from the goalie, the goaltending, and the defense, all that stuff. That's the easier way to punch your ticket to the playoffs. But in terms of right now, late August, looking at the rosters, like Montreal's got more skill than Boston. Buffalo's got more skill than Boston. Doesn't mean they're going to be good, but Ottawa's got like all these other teams that are trying to also push their way up to the top of the Atlantic, and they're waiting for one of the Titans, right? Like Tampa or Toronto or Florida to dip a little bit. I think just right now on paper, right? On paper, all those teams are at least better positioned to move up than the Bruins, where I feels like they could do that, but a lot I think kind of has to go their way in terms of guys rebounding, getting healthy, all that type of stuff. So again, would not be surprised in the slightest, Evan, right? If all of a sudden the Bruins are sneaking in as a wild card team or anything like that. But I think a lot has to kind of go their way, whereas opposed to like, you look at Ottawa with how much young talent they have, plus like a good goalie in Linus Ullmark, like that one I feel like you can map out a lot easier than the Bruins really riding the ship in short order after, again, a disastrous year last year.
Completely. And that's where like Ottawa, I get why they're in the playoff hunt. They make a lot of sense for it. No national games for Ottawa, by the way. None.
I got to get Brady Tkachuk out of there.
Oh, they do. They do. New York, Boston, like get him to one of the good markets. I mean, it would be a good one is Chicago. Chicago would be great.
No, because it'd be good for him because he'd be on national TV, but the product would probably still be shit. So,
well, yes, Yes. But I think the league would love him.
There's one thing the league would love is putting that crap ass team on our TV screens nonstop.
Oh boy, would they. Oh boy, would they. I want to get into some prospect stuff because there's some updates on that end of things. But first, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Preseason football is underway. Regular season is just around the corner, and college football is also here. So don't miss any of the action this season over on PrizePicks. Doing my fantasy drafts, Connor. You know who I like a lot? Like me some Drake May. I like Drake May. I also like Kyler Murray. Picked him in one of my leagues. I have high hopes for him, which means I have high hopes for them on PrizePicks. Either for Kyler Murray, it's rushing yards. For Drake May, it's passing yards, doing more on that. I like those picks a lot. Travion Henderson is also someone, a sleeper in fantasy leagues that I think you could really do really well with in the first couple weeks over on PrizePicks. So PrizePicks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. And PrizePicks put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When PrizePicks, they offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account. This football season, PrizePicks invented the Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So download the PrizePicks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Just chug your game. Run your game, sprint your game, whatever it takes to your game. Over there at PrizePicks, Patriots should be more watchable this year. So I think PrizePicks is a good place to make it even more fun throughout the season. So we love PrizePicks. Corey Pronman is doing his prospect rankings. He's doing his franchise rankings for prospects. Bruins move up to number 20. Woo! Play the goal horn. Up to 20 from 32 or 31 or 30, wherever
32,
they were.
I believe. I think they were in the last 2 years. So
they went up 12 spots, which I will take. I will take that. I think I don't know if people disagree with the list more than they do where the Bruins are. I think the Bruins are still, lower end, middle of the pack. That's fine. They're improving and they should continue to improve over the next 2 years. But what people have sort of been poking at is Corey Pronman's rankings of the top 8 prospects. And I'll read them, and then we can break them down. Number 1, you'll never guess who's number 1. James Haggs is number 1. James Haggs is number 1. I thought it might have been Fabian Lysell, but we'll go with James Haggs at 1. Fraser Minton at 2. Dan Zlotchmelis, UMass guy, at 3. Will Moore comes in at 4. Dean Letourneau at 5, Matt Patra all the way down at number 6, Andre Gausseau at 7, and Fabian Lysell rounds it out at 8 in terms of has a chance to play. Liam Pettersson was mentioned, Will Zellers, and then he lists out some other prospects. Guys like Chris Pelosi, Jonathan Morello, Elliot Grenwald, Frederick Brunet, Kirill Yemelyanov. So again, Bruins rank 20th, Penguins rank 19th, Kings rank 21. A lot of people have been debating this list. I think Haggs at number 1 is obviously fine. Everyone agrees there. I think it has 100% approval. After that, Minton at 2, Lockmelis 3, Patra all the way down at 6. I mean, I think there's a lot to digest from this list.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Zellers isn't higher up there because I almost feel like when you look at, and again, a lot of this I think has to come down to Haggs getting added to this pipeline and the reason why they jumped up so high. But I think what's been kind of the knock against the Bruins, beyond the fact they just haven't had a lot of picks, is that a lot of them are guys that I'm sure, I think Prodman's probably, posted about this before. A lot of the guys on the list that he already has, right, where it's Will Moore, someone like Fraser Minton even, maybe more bottom 6 type players, right? I think it's how he kind of maps out a lot of these guys. He even said, Losh Mellers could be a third-line guy, all these sorts of things. Zellers is almost a breath of fresh air where he's a guy that at least has the upside of, maybe he's more of a middle 6 wing, but he's a guy that could be a 20 goal scorer, right? And I think you look at what he did this past year as the USHL Player of the Year, that's pretty noteworthy, right? So I don't know why exactly he dipped or why he wasn't listed, because I think when you just look at, sizing up the Bruins and what's been the knock on them in terms of just that lack of skill, that lack of scoring touch. I think that he's a guy that should at least make the list. I'm not saying that all of a sudden Will Zeller is going to be a 30-goal guy at North Dakota this year, but I don't think we've seen anything from him that makes it look like he's someone that is still like a wait and see type of player. Like, and again, maybe he hits a wall at North Dakota and at the college level, but like, you're a guy who's as productive as he was in the USHL. I think he warrants a spot on that list.
Completely. And I think Zeller's is an interesting thing because like Pronman says, he had a huge season. He's very quick and skilled, but he's undersized. And I don't see a ton of hardness in his game that you'd like at that frame. Now, my guess is that Pronman views Zellers as he can only play in a top 6. And I don't think Pronman thinks he can do it. I think Pronman doesn't think he's a top 6 guy at the NHL level, which, again, debatable. But I still don't get, I agree with you in the sense that, like, that's still something you don't have a lot of in your system. Every guy I listed, Fraser Minton, projected middle 6. Luckmelis, bottom 6. Moore, bottom 6. Letourneau, bottom 6. Patra, not dynamic enough. Gausseau, bottom 6. Lysell, says, won't stick in the top 9. Zellers at least has top 6 upside. Not saying he's going to hit it. Like, and I think Pronman doesn't think he will. But I don't know how Zellers doesn't make that list. I don't know how Zellers, his upside doesn't beat those others. Now, Letourneau, he has relatively high, number 5, which I guess isn't relatively high for a first, relative for a guy who had 3 points in 36 games last year at the collegiate level. But he's another one that, like, so, okay, he's projectable, if he hits, he hits, but you have him as a bottom 6 guy. So then, like, why is he 5th? Why wouldn't he be lower? So that's what I guess I don't really fully understand with this. And then Patra is the interesting one too, because Matt Patra's played NHL games. He's had relative success in the NHL. He's shown flashes in the NHL. I think at the very least, he's a 3rd-line center on some team. Not saying he's perfect or anything, but like, I'm surprised he's 6th. I know that like a guy like Letourneau might have a higher ceiling technically, but Patra's shown you it at the NHL level. Not saying it's always been there, but like he's shown it at least.
Yeah, it's almost like, I know there's like, I think there's question marks of like, can he stay healthy? Can his game fully adapt to the NHL level? And like, is he dynamic enough? Sure. But like the first couple months of the year, 2 years ago, he was looking like a guy that was on pace for like a 50-point season, maybe like 45 points. But as a 45-point player at 19 years old, pretty good. Yeah. Like the skill is there. And like, it's not also like he's a guy that you're banking on the ceiling or the production, right? It's not like you're looking at someone like Lysell who's got the talent but hasn't put it all together, or the guy who could be something where it's like Dean Letourneau, even if he's maybe a bottom 6 player, is also a 6'7" forward with good puck skills, right? Where you just look at the profile and you're trying to project what he could be. Like Patra has produced at the level. Now he's in a little bit of a crossroads, right? In terms of where his spot is on this roster, whether he can kind of move past these injuries, stuff like that. But I still feel like when also the Bruins are so barren in terms of like proven playmakers, I still think he should be higher than 6, right?
Yeah.
And again, like, I'm not even like, we've talked about Patra and where he fits in on this team. And it's like, I don't know what to make of him right now, but I still don't think he's a guy that also is like kind of putting that same, like, over the hill, or like maybe like a wait and see, or maybe his time has passed. Like maybe a guy like Lysell is in at this point. Because also Patra's 21, 22?
He's still young. He's still very young. And I think him being up in the NHL 2 years ago sort of hinders that. I want to get into what this means long-term for them, because there is some truth to this. Like Pronman is not just some goober. Like Pronman is watching these guys a lot.
Those are harsh words you just doled out there.
Yeah, well, he's not a goober. He isn't a goober. Yes. Pronman knows what he's writing. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's watching. And he watches all of these prospects. It's not like he's just in one area. So like, these words carry some weight. But first, words that carry weight, ours. Make sure to subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Throughout the season, we have a lot of stuff, podcasts, interviews, scrums, live streams from time to time. And it's great if you could subscribe and turn on notifications. We would very much appreciate that. It's very easy. It's free, which is great. And if you don't love that, and you want to just listen to us, you could do that too. Subscribe to Bruins Beat or Poke the Bear or Pucks with Haggs, wherever you get your podcasts from, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, so you don't miss a single episode. And then obviously there's a lot of other great content too over at CLNS, Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access. There's so much going on over there. They have live streams all the time, podcasts all the time. So you will never miss a thing over there. So go subscribe whenever you get a chance, whenever you want to. Hopefully it's sooner rather than later, though. That would be nice. So again, Pronman ranks him 20th. It's an upgrade from being 32nd, which is good. It still hints at, though, and I think, for over the summer, we've talked a lot about prospect pool is better. No doubt. I mean, Haggs and Moore, 2 of your draft picks from this year, are in the top 5. That's a huge addition to have those guys there. You still need more, though. You still need more. Your prospect pool still has a ways to go. And the good thing is that you have ways to do it. You have 2 firsts this year. You have a first, do you have 2 firsts in 2027 too? Yeah, the Panthers,
Florida.
right?
Yeah.
So you have 2 firsts in 2027. So you got 4 firsts in the next 2 drafts. As of now, I don't have it in front of me, but you have your seconds coming up. I think you might even have an extra second.
You do. So I don't think they've traded any seconds. I think you've had like all these trades from like the Bertuzzi trade, the Orlov Hathaway, where there's been like future seconds taken. Even I think like the Lindholm trade, Hampus Lindholm trade way back when had a couple of like draft picks 2-3 years down the road. But I think you're all set now. I think they have all your seconds.
Yeah, out of the woods. And so again, it shows like you should be making those picks over the next 2 years. And your prospect pool in a year should be 12th, you hope. And in 2 years, you're in that top 8. And then that's when those guys are going to start to come up. Haggens should be up next year. So, and by next, I mean like 26, 27. So you're good there. And then you're going to start to see like Fraser Mitten. Do you see him this year? Matt Potter, do you see him this year? What's Dean Letourneau in college? Will Moore, what does he develop into at BC? What is Locke Mellis doing down in Providence? And can he make a contribution at the NHL level? He's someone that people are really high on. Pronman is relatively really high on him. So, and then you have future draft picks too. And like, now you're supplementing this current core. But again, I look at these rankings and yes, we can disagree with them. And I think there's a lot of things to disagree with, but I think we can all agree that there's still a lot of work to be done with this prospect pool. And it's just fortunate that they have those picks coming up that they can bolster it.
Yeah, I think they're just on the right track. And I think that's the biggest thing with the Bruins in terms of even like if this year is a bridge year or there's going to be the growing pains I think we're all expecting. It does feel like regardless of where the Bruins finish in the standings, barring it being like another catastrophe where guys are hurt, Swayman can't get out of this rut and like they're getting a top 5 pick, which hell, if you want to get bump up the rankings again, add Gavin McKenna to the list or
that's right.
Or Verhoff or any one of these guys, Stenberg, anyone. Yeah, like any of those guys are sure going to help you out. But like, it does feel like they are just on the right track. Even if like the Bruins miss the playoffs, but they get a top 10 pick or somewhere in the 11 to 14 range, you're getting a good player in what's going to be a deeper draft. You're going to get probably 2 players depending on where Toronto is, right? With that draft order. And you look at the fact that Bruins still need help across the lineup, right? Like as much as people look at the center position as the biggest thing, there's a lot of really high skilled wings in this upcoming draft that you can add a player who's going to help you out in terms of just bolstering your prospect pipeline. There's a couple of really high-end defensemen as well. And even like we've seen in the past when the Bruins haven't had first-round picks, they've been very successful of finding guys in the second round that you get really excited about. Second rounds where you either find guys who have dropped a little bit. And again, if the Bruins are a team that are more in like the late 30s, early 40s, that's when you find a guy that maybe is a first-round talent that dips, or maybe a guy that's a little bit more of a risk. But when you have so much draft picks and so many dots to throw at the board, you can add a player that maybe has that upside as well. So the Bruins are in a spot. And again, I don't think they're going to keep all these picks. Like if this is a team that either exceeds expectations or they're trying to find a player that they think can help them out this year, and especially for the long haul, maybe you give up some of those picks. But it does feel like the Bruins, what they did, especially in March, in terms of ripping that Band-Aid off, getting these draft picks, getting these prospects, and just kind of getting that clean slate, has them better positioned to at least build on this moving forward. And again, I think even if like beyond looking at what they add next year in the draft, it does feel like there's so many guys that like Pronman has listed that should like take steps forward, right? Like, I'm not saying that all of a sudden like Dean Letourneau's got a 20 point season incoming, but like Haggs should light it up at BC. Wash Millers should be very productive in Providence. Zellers, who he hasn't ranked, should have an impactful freshman year at North Dakota. Like, there's a lot of guys who I think either broke through or just in the system now that have a lot more room to grow within whatever league competition they're in right now. So I think even beyond adding more talent, which we're expecting, I think a lot of guys the Bruins already have should really take a step forward this winter moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's the encouraging thing. And then there's the other end of it you mentioned there a little bit too, where it's like, yes, you need to make your picks. But if things are going well, or if someone pops up, we've said this before, who you need to package picks for, you have the picks to do that. If that doesn't happen, though, make your picks. Make your picks. You need to make your picks. And again, it's not all about prospect rankings because the main thing is wins and losses. But it still does matter for future wins and losses to have a good prospect pool that you're building up. And again, Haggs is a good guy to build around, but you start looking down there, Mitten, middle six, Lockmellis, bottom six, Moore, bottom six, Letourneau, bottom six. Not saying all those guys are going to be bottom six. Some of them could maybe elevate into the top six, and some of them aren't going to be anywhere in the NHL. But you do need to add more high-end skill to your prospect pool, and I think they have the means to do it. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Evan, you can read all of my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. We have you covered every step of the way of this Bruins season. We're finally there. We got captain's practice coming up. We got training camp. We can actually talk about some actual tangible stuff. Finally, we made it. So you can read all of my stuff over on those two sites. We'll have training camp previews, roster battles, all that good stuff as the Bruins start up a new season. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.